So welcome everyone. This session, this training session, what's the title of it? What does an ideal candidate really look like? I don't know. I was hoping you knew. Okay, no, you don't. Don't worry about that. Listen, before we get started, I just want to check. I know my masterminds, I know those people, but I don't know all of you. I don't know all of you that well. So I just want to make sure that I can pitch this session to the right level. Okay, so just make sure that I'm including as many people in this as possible. So I'm gonna, in your chat section, you should see, or it should pop up, a poll. And what I'm going to do is just ask you, I think I've started the poll, yeah, and I'm going to make the results public at the end of the poll. I want you to tell me, how would you best describe your position, okay? Now, tick either that you're a recruitment business owner or a director, or whether you're a manager, stroke team leader, or whether you're a recruitment consultant. That could be senior, junior, just start, it doesn't matter. But I'd really, really like to know the role that best describes you. Now, some of you owners I know still recruit, and that's fine. Tick the recruitment business owner. I'm going to make an assumption that if you are an owner, you're probably still active, and even if you're not sort of, on it 24/7, I know you're also running and growing a business, then I'm still going to be pitching this at the right level. So do me a favor, just click one of them. Tell me your, sort of, let me know the position that best describes you. I think I've set it up there for you. So just tick one of those. I'm going to tick one as well. I'm going to do that. Let's have a look. Good. Okay. So I'm going to keep that going just for a second. And let's see, if I end this poll, I wonder what happens. Let's have a look. I'll tell you, in fact, the results should come up as well. Good. Okay, this is really good, really interesting. I hope you can see those results. Got 60% of you are owners, so great. We are recruitment business leaders. We've got some managers and team leaders in there, 10%, and 30% recruitment consultants. But you know what? And if you are a recruitment consultant watching this, I would say to you, I regard you as leaders, okay? I regard you as recruitment business leaders in the sense that you're making this investment of time in your learning and your self-development. So we're really happy to have you on board. If recruitment consultants, if I do pitch this and I use a lot of language about business owners, it's because the majority of people in here are recruitment business owners. So I'm just going to talk in that level. But the training that we're going to do today, you know what? You're going to find it really, really, whether you're an owner or a recruitment consultant or a team leader, you're going to find this really, really useful. So look, let's get this show on the road. Thank you very much for voting. Let's take that. I think I can take that off. Yeah, good. Okay, listen, I've got a chat section in here. Graham can't see the poll, and I'm sorry about that, Graham. I know what you do, so don't worry about that. Good. Okay, Nikeli, I can see that you've joined us from South Africa. I think this is, it's not the first session you joined, so welcome aboard. So look, let's get this show on the road. You and I and most professional recruitment consultants know that qualification is the phrase that pays in recruitment. You know that. You don't need me, you don't need my training to have taught you that. If you have followed my training, if you're somebody that's been involved on my masterminds or my blueprint programs or any of my online training programs, you'll know that I put great stock by qualification of everything. Qualification of every client that you deal with, because not all clients are great clients, right? So sometimes I'll be advising you, you need to sack your client, Alan Sugar style, you're fired. You need to get rid of some of them. Qualification of the jobs that you receive or the opportunities that you work on, because not every opportunity you work on is going to be workable or fillable. So you need to qualify every single job you work on. And on this subject, absolutely right, you need to qualify the candidates that you work with. Now, sometimes as recruiters, we ignore, or certainly I know I did, I've ignored, excuse me for a second, like this mug, everyone that's familiar with me will know this is my mug, right? I love caffeine. I know as a recruiter, I used to ignore some of the warning flags that come up. Warning flags, I don't know, the candidate would say something, would do something that would cause me concern. But I'd ignore those warning flags, generally because they were the only candidate that I had on a position. So, you know, the last thing I want to do is qualify them out. But what I've learned, what I knew at the time instinctively, but what I've learned since is you do have to qualify them out. A candidate who, you know, doesn't qualify or doesn't qualify at this very beginning, they just come back later on to haunt you and to bite you on the backside. So ignore those warning signals. Some people call them gut feelings. Some people call them, I don't know, you know, the hairs on the back of my head. Don't ignore that feeling. It's a really, really good feeling to have. So, so you may be a recruiter, you may be a business owner that's recruiting those warning signals. If you're a manager, if you're a team leader, if you're a business owner and you're managing a team of consultants, sometimes you'll get your recruiters will tell you, they'll say to you, you know, at the team meeting, you know what, boss, this is a shoe-in candidate. You know, I've got this great candidate. They're a shoe-in candidate. I used to use the term walking placement. And I don't know, sometimes we, as recruiters, we say this almost just to convince ourselves. Well, business owners, recruitment business leaders, I want you to be able to challenge anyone who says to you, anyone in your team that says to you, this is a shoe-in candidate. So I'm going to share with you 11 criteria, okay? 11 criteria. And this criteria, if you're a recruiter, I want you to use it on every single candidate that you are engaged with. All right, so not every candidate in your database, but every candidate that you engage with, i.e. that you are presenting to a client, working on an open opportunity, vacancy, assignment, anyone who's in the interview process, anyone that's at offer stage. I want you to apply this 11 criteria that I'm going to give you. Recruitment business owners, I want you to use this 11 criteria as a checklist on those team meetings that you have with your staff. So as you're analyzing deals, you might use this checklist this week, all right? In your next team meeting, you might use this checklist. And when one of your consultants or one of your team members is talking about a deal that they're currently in, I want you as the, you know, leader, the recruitment business leader, to use this checklist to challenge, to qualify every candidate. What your team will end up doing is adopting the same checklist. So what you can do is, you know, I don't know, delegate it to somebody else on the next meeting that you do and say, hey, listen, I want you to be the one that challenges using this checklist. So anyway, listen, let me give you the checklist. The first thing that I want to do, oh, by the way, I'm looking for you to find candidates that, work with candidates that tick as many of these boxes as possible. Okay, as many of these boxes as possible. If your candidate ticks every single one of the 11 boxes, you are on the way to a successful placement. If your candidate doesn't tick the boxes, I'm not telling you throw the candidate out. I'm telling you recognize where you need to do work. Okay, recognize where you need to do work. So this isn't about, oh, this is the perfect, I call it the ideal candidate, but not every candidate's going to be ideal, not every candidate's going to be perfect. But this is a really good way for you to take a gauge or a temperature or a, you know, the pulse of a placement that you're working. So use this checklist. I hope you don't mind me having the coffee. I love coffee, and it's that time in the morning for me. It's dark outside, so good. All right, so look, first criteria. The candidate is, number one, able to do the job or is doing the same job now. So criteria number one, the candidate is able to do the job or is doing the same job now. Now, I know that sounds like, oh yeah, Roy, you know, thank you for stating the bleeding obvious. The candidate's got to be able to do the job. You know, that's it. So the questions that you want to ask yourself, is the candidate qualified? Okay, is the candidate qualified? Have they got the specific background that your client described when you were taking the job brief or the vacancy details? You know, the client's kind of described, this is our ideal background. I want somebody with this amount of experience. Has the candidate got that experience? But preferably, the candidate's performing the same role or a similar role, or the only exception to that is candidates that got transferable skills detailed by the client. Now, what do I mean by that? The client may say, look, we're looking for somebody, for example, you know, years and years ago, I worked an assignment for what was called a stress engineer. I didn't know what this was, but it was for an aviation company. And I'll tell you really quickly, because I had to find out, that a stress engineer was not someone that was just like a stressed engineer, like, oh, I'm really stressed. Stress engineer was about somebody, you know, building planes or the interior of planes, and it was to do with the tensile strength of materials that they use in the confined area of a cabin, okay, cabin of an aircraft. Now, I made the mistake of saying to the client, well, so presumably you're looking for somebody doing the same job in one of your competitors, another aviation company, and they said no. Actually, we can take people, stress engineers, people that have worked with tensile strength and materials from any confined space. So people that have worked on trains, people that have worked in cars, people that have worked on boats. Generally, transportation of humans, I think just humans, but anyway, transportation, tensile strength of any material. So transferable skills. Anyway, the other thing that I want to talk to you about is, and we're going to go into this in a bit more detail in a while, is achievements and accomplishments, okay? What the candidate has done rather than what the candidate does. Does that make sense? What the candidate has achieved, and I've talked in my other training about this, you know, candidates' achievements and accomplishments, the things that they've achieved, the things that they've accomplished. And if you can put a number on that, if you can put a measurement on that achievement, then it makes it, to make it more tangible, what happens is it makes it more real. Again, let me give you an example. You're a recruiter, okay, and you could turn around and say, Roy, you know something, I'm a really good recruiter. I'm a really good recruiter. Okay, well, you know, I'm a very successful recruiter. Okay, and you know, that sounds all right. But how much stronger is it if you say to me, you know what, Roy, I'm a recruiter that I've invoiced over $1 million in placement revenue over the last 18 months. Okay, that's pretty impressive. How about, Roy, I'm the #1 consultant within my company. The company is, you know, 50 people, 50 recruiters. I'm the #1, and I have been the #1 for the last 8 consecutive months in terms of billing revenue. Whatever it is, right? But the more tangible you make that achievement, the more real it will seem to the person that's listening. So candidates with achievements and accomplishments, really, really good, because that's the thing that you can evidence with your client. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Criteria number 2, the candidate is massively motivated. All right, write that one down, massively motivated. And really, they're what I would call a #1 or a #2 on the motivation to move scale. Now, some of you don't know the motivation to move scale. It's a really, really simple measurement or a test. Don't be fooled by its simplicity. Most people, when they hear this, they go, "Oh, that just sounds really quite childish," and you know, because of its simplicity. But don't knock simplicity. This is a scale that I used as a recruiter for most of the 27 years or whatever I've worked in this industry, and I've trained it. It's a very, very effective measurement. Now, what the measurement is if I asked you to use one word to describe the candidate that you're currently working with, or a candidate you're currently working with, to describe their motivation, you know, what different words could we come up with? Oh boy, they're highly motivated. They are They're jumping up and down motivate. That's not strictly one word. They are they're really interested. They are not interested. They're disinterested. So many different words, right? What I like here is a number to measure or describe any candidate's motivation. So look, here's the scale. I'm going to do this really simply. This is the scale that I would use with any candidate that I'm working. You're my candidate. On a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being most interested or highly motivated to explore new positions or to move jobs. Okay, so you can use either of those. You don't have to use all of them, right? So on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being most interested in exploring new opportunity and 5 being least interested in exploring opportunity, what number would you give yourself? Now, just think about that for a second. It's like, look, I know none of you are looking for jobs right now. You wouldn't be on this if you were. But, you know, think about it and ask yourself, what's the most common answer do you think I hear from candidates or heard in my career? What's the most common answer? Actually, with headhunting candidates as well, the most common answer I tell you is number 3. They go, oh, I'm you know, 3. And it's because it's like they don't want to appear too interested. They don't want to appear too disinterested. I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm going to sit on the fence. What you're looking for, particularly after you've described the opportunity and you start working and you're engaging with the candidate, is you're looking to work with candidates who are either a number 1 or a number 2. Now, my old boss, Tony Byrne, used to say, my mentor used to say, Roy, number 1s accept offers. Number 2s accept counter offers. Now, I disagree with Tony, and it's only because of working with this scale and working with, as you guys know, tens of thousands of recruitment consultants across the globe. I've taught this scale, I've watched people using the scale, and I had a slight revision on it. I would say to you, number 1s and number 2s. Work with number 1s and number 2s. Because number 1s, sorry, first of all, number 2s are just number 1s waiting to be convinced, all right? So always don't discard number 2s. 1s and 2s accept offers. 3s, 4s, and 5s accept counter offers, reject your offers, stay where they are, don't turn up, all those kinds of things. And generally, if it's a really simple scale, and everyone kind of goes, oh, it's so simple, it's so too simple. As long as you use that scale with every single candidate that you work with, it works, right? The reason why I like it is I use that scale at the beginning when I'm first qualifying a candidate, and then I use the same scale once they've met with my client after every interview. I said to them, brilliant, you know, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being most interested now to join my client and 5 being least interested, what number would you give yourself? And they'll go, oh, number 2, okay, what would it take, what my client needs to tell you in order for you to be a number 1? Generally, after they've met with your client and they're going through to second interview, I would say to you, they really need to be a 1. Okay, they really need to be a 1. If not, you've got some serious kind of warning signals or alarm bells. You just got to front it. You've got to deal with that, you know, that thing. It's like, look, okay, now if we've asked them the question, we qualified, and they said 1, and then after they met your client, they say, oh, I'm a 2, you have got a problem, right? Something's gone on in that interview that is not good. Generally, what you're looking for is a progression up in the scale. Generally, you should be worried if you get a progression down. Is that a word? Not progression, but you know, anyway, a decrease, right? Okay, good. Number 3, criteria. Look for people whose primary motivation is not more money. Okay, look for people whose primary motivation is not more money. Now, look, let's get this out of the way straight away. Money is always a motivator. You know, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's like you and I are exactly the same. It's like, look, someone came along and said, I'll give you £1 million, come and join me. I don't know, I would seriously think about it. Would you? Of course you would. Okay, so money, you know, it's always a motivator. But the reason why I say to you, beware of candidates whose primary motivation is money, is that if the candidate gets a counter offer, candidate who says their primary motivation is money, and that candidate gets a counter offer, you lose. You lose. It's like game over. Because they've told you from the outset, it's like, look, this is all about the money. This is all about the money. There's a song in there somewhere, isn't there? Yeah. This is all about the money. So be very, very cautious with somebody that says to you, look, my primary motivation is money. Now, I know as recruiters, we are recruiting recruiters for ourselves. And we recruit, some of you I know recruit salespeople, that's your specialist area. And of course, salespeople will tell you, and recruiters will tell you at interview, yeah, I'm motivated by money. Try and get behind that question. Forget what I've just told you. It's like about that, look for primary motivation. Try and get behind that, because even with salespeople, even with recruiters, I'm always looking for what's, why money? What does money give you? What does money give you? And that's generally the thing that you can play to the motivation, all right? As recruiters, of course, they're going to earn money. As salespeople, of course, they're going to earn money. But what you're looking for is, what are the other drives for you? What are the other drives for you? Answers will be things like, I'm looking for an opportunity to grow. I'm looking for an opportunity to work with new technology. I'm looking to, become a manager, or I'm looking for a shareholding position. I'm looking for, the things. There's all the things that I would call opportunity, and anybody that's done that training with me will know all about opportunity. Now, look, I just want to do a quick shout out. We're at number 4. I've got 11 of these things in total. So I was going to say we're halfway through. We're not halfway through just yet. I just want to make sure everyone in the room, do me a favor, just say yes, all right? Just give me like some kind of shout out, just to let me know that you're still with me, you're still learning, you're still enjoying it. I can see we've got a lot of people in the room. So do me a favor. And all I'm doing is just checking, I suppose, that you're still engaged with me, all right? So give me some kind of, I don't know, you can't even do hands up on this system, but you can give me a great big shout of yes. You can tell me that you're enjoying this session if you are enjoying the session. So don't lie. And whilst you're doing that, I'm going to move on. All right. So I'm not going to do any kind of call outs to people or whatever. So look, what else? Number 4 criteria: the candidate is realistic about their true worth. Okay, the candidate. Thank you, Graham. The candidate is realistic about their true worth. Now, what do I mean by that? Of course, candidates, thank you, guys, you're all coming through thick and fast. I did say I was going to do shout outs, but I am. Kathy, Tom, Sebastian, Matthias, if I pronounced that correctly, Malatse, Carol, Nick, morning boss, excellent, Jason, Jason, enjoy. John, I'm still awake, good. Novello, good. Vicky, yes, love that, Vicky. That's a real resounding yes. Okay, so look, there's too many, I can't mention you all. Right, realistic about what they're truly worth. What you're looking for is a candidate that is seeking, realistic about money, okay? Realistic about money. And you know what I mean, you get unrealistic people that will come in and go, oh, I want a 50% increase on my base salary or my package. Bonkers, yeah, bonkers. What you're looking for, ideally, and a good rule of thumb, I think, is someone that's looking for between 0 and 10% increase on their base salary or their base package is reasonable, okay? If the candidate's looking for over 10%, then unless you've got information that, I don't know, confirms that that's justifiable, and here it is, right? I used to interview people, and I'd know from interviewing, oh my God, this person is seriously underpaid. They're undervalued and underpaid. Now, 9 times out of 10, I'd almost have to reveal that to the candidate. The reason why they're underpaid is they joined the business as a youngster, and they've stayed in that business and they've steadily progressed, but they haven't had salary increases reflective of what's going on in the general marketplace. So sometimes those candidates would come to me and I would know, it's like, wow, this candidate is, seriously underpaid. I know any offer I'm going to get them is going to be considerably higher. But very occasionally you do get candidates who know that they're underpaid, and they'll come in and they'll ask for a serious increase, 10%, 15%, 20% increase. If you know that the market will support that, then fine, okay? But if you know that it won't, that's not a candidate who is realistic about what they're truly worth. You know, you just got to be careful, because if it's inconsistent, i.e. the candidate's asking for too much, for me, it directly plays to motivation. Okay, if a candidate's asking for too much money, what they're saying is, I'm not highly motivated to move. Let me give you an example. It's like, you know, in the latter part of my recruitment career, running businesses, etc., I might have got headhunt calls. You guys, I know, would be getting, you know, direct sourcing calls or whatever from recruitment businesses direct, or from, you know, rep to recs. And when you're not interested, okay, level with me, when you're not interested and they say, oh, you know, I've got a client that's really interested, or we're really interested in you, you'll name a figure that's just outrageous. You'll name a figure that's just outrageous because you're not motivated to move. You're just like, you know, I'm kind of playing. It's like if you were going to pay me £10,000 a day to get out of bed, then yeah, of course I would consider it. So this, for me, the salary question directly reflects their motivation to move. Someone who's really realistic will say somewhere between 0 and 10%. Someone who is you know, not motivated, they're going to give you an outlandish figure, if they give you a figure at all. All right. So number 4, realistic about what they are truly worth. Number 5, the candidate's got to be cooperative. Okay. And one of the most common mistakes that I've seen is recruiters starting off working with a candidate who is clearly uncooperative. And again, I'm guilty of that one. Now, my early part of my career, I was just so glad to have a qualified candidate in front of me that I'd be kind of like tripping over myself to, you know, almost like doffing my cap to them and subservient. That was in the early part of my career. But I realized that if they were uncooperative with me at the beginning, then they were going to be uncooperative with me, or in fact, my experience told me they were uncooperative at the end when I needed them to, I don't know, turn up for interviews or accept an offer or start even, all right? Always, if you guys think about it, if you're true to yourself, you'll recognize your deals that go down where the candidate's at fault. Think about your deals that have gone down. Talk to your consultant about the deals that have gone down. Generally, the warning signals were there. If you looked close enough, they were there at the beginning. It's like the candidate didn't do something. They didn't call you at a particular time. So look, let me tell you what a cooperative candidate does. They take your calls. A cooperative candidate takes your calls or returns them in a timely fashion. All right. Uncooperative candidates don't take your calls. They go, oh no, you know, voicemail, voicemail, voicemail. And they don't call you back. You just get hold of them the next day. It's like, you didn't call me. That's not a cooperative candidate. A cooperative candidate gives you specific and complete answers to your questions. Not, I'm not sure, or gives you half an answer. You know, how interested are you in my client? Depends. That's not a cooperative client, all right, cooperative candidate, sorry. A cooperative candidate follows your suggestions, actually does what you say during interview. All right, so if you tell them what to wear, how to behave, how to conduct themselves, how to answer a question, a cooperative candidate does that stuff. Cooperative candidate doesn't talk money in the interview. You know, like we would almost tell them, look, don't get into a money discussion. It makes you look grabby, or it makes you look you know, like that's the only thing that you're interested in. Let's leave that. I'll sort that out for you. I'll, you know, certainly happy to discuss that with you. Your job in the interview, candidate, is to decide whether you can do the job, A, and whether you want the job, B. That's it. Leave the money thing up to me. We'll sort the money out. So a cooperative candidate doesn't talk money in an interview. Cooperative candidate, here's a good one, calls to give you feedback immediately after each interview. That's what a cooperative candidate does. An uncooperative one doesn't bother calling you. You're chasing them for days and weeks on end. A cooperative candidate gives you specific numbers on salary, on you know, the minimum offer accepted, that kind of thing. They'll say to you, look, I'll move for 22 or 58 or whatever it is, but they give you a specific number. This is the minimum, this is the ideal. ideally this is what I'd like. This is what I'm currently earning. This is the minimum that I would accept. This is my walkaway figure, whatever you want to call it. And then this is, it's my target. This is what I would love to do. But a cooperative candidate gives you that information. I work with recruiters sometimes. I say, you're close to a deal. Good. What would your candidate accept? Oh, they won't tell me. That's not a cooperative candidate. That's not someone who's working with you. That's like somebody who's working against you. For me, that sounds like somebody that's just shopping for a counter offer. So candidates who don't give you that information, there's something wrong, and you need to address it. Right? You need to address it. Tell the candidate. And finally, a cooperative candidate, they accept offers and they decline counter offers. I know that sounds like a given, but that's what it is. And you know what? When they accept the counter offer, look back at the beginning. Look back at the early part, your early relationship with that candidate. Generally, you'll see the clues. Now, I'm not telling you, but it's like, oh well, you're going to spot every uncooperative candidate. But you do learn, you get into a pattern, and you learn that actually that gut feeling that I had at the beginning, next time I'm going to trust that. Okay, next time I'm going to trust that. Number 6 is a really quick one. Candidates got to have good references. In fact, they've got to be reference checkable. So they've got to be able to provide you with people. And the flip side to that is you've got to be able to contact those people. All right. I don't know if you've ever had that, where they're giving you some names on paper. I'm like, are these people alive? Do they ever exist? Have they just come up with these names off the top of their head? So they've got to have an ideal candidate for you is somebody who is reference checkable. Quick one. Number 7. Missed out one. Number 7. Again, this is a given, right? They've got to look the part. They've got to look the part. Now, I'm not saying to you, oh yeah, every candidate's got to be suited and booted. I used to say that because that's what marketplace that I perhaps work in. But in some roles, image isn't the most important thing. It's just all relative, and it's all related to the niche or whatever that you work in. I know some people that place IT professionals, programmers, etc., and they've got a uniform. It's generally a Megadeth t-shirt. It's generally a long. I'm sorry, and if you know any programmers, if you work with programmers, I'm just having fun with you. But it's that the long, dark, lank hair, the Megadeth t-shirt. Generally, they're carrying a bit of IT equipment underneath their arms. I always bump into them in lifts, and I always say to them, "Are you a programmer?" They go, "How did you know that?" It's like, yeah. But look, your candidate's got to look the part, and what I mean by that is, there's a general standard. I would say to you, dress to impress the client that you are sending down. So if that client is a casual wear client, that's fine. Smart casual is appropriate. But here's the deal, right? I've never known any client in any market take on someone who was dirty, smelly, looked shoddy. So if the candidates, there's a basic kind of accepted standard of how people present themselves, and you kind of got to deal with that. So the candidate's got to have, they've got to look the part. One of the reasons why they look the part is they reflect you. Okay, so you send in someone who stinks, or dirty fingernails, or they just look horrible. I don't care what marketplace that is. I really don't care what marketplace that is. That's going to reflect on you. Your client is going to view that candidate as an ambassador for your business, and I don't want that for you. Okay, I really don't want that for you. Number 8. Number 8 is values stroke culture fit. Okay, values stroke culture fit. So you've got to understand your candidate's values, because the values directly play to a culture fit for your client. Now, how do you understand, how do you get that kind of, understanding? Well, first of all, you've got to understand your client's culture. Now, I've only ever worked with one person that was able to do that on a telephone, and she was phenomenal. That's another story for another day. Most normal human beings, most normal recruiters, you have to be in your client's premises. You have to visit your client in the culture, in order to really understand, in order to really soak it up. Okay, and it's the culture. It's like, look, you know, how do these people work? What do they look like? What's the mix? What's the banter in the office? What's their attitude to work? How do they behave? Because, you know, look, birds of a feather flock together. If you're going to put somebody into that environment, they've got to be somebody that kind of clicks. You know, what else do you call it? Chemistry. I know some people call it chemistry. For me, the easiest way is for you to understand your client's culture, and then when you're looking at your candidate, look to see if they, you know, they're a like-minded person. Yeah, you know, you can also ask the candidate, you know, what cultures do you work best in? What cultures do you work worse in? What environments, you want to use a different word, what environments do you find you work really well? So some candidates will say to you, look, I need complete and utter quiet, okay? I really need like quiet in order for me to perform and be creative and do whatever it is that I do. Well, if you know that your client's culture or environment is like Rio every, you know, Rio de Janeiro every afternoon, then that's probably not going to be a great culture fit. Remember, birds of a feather flock together, so just do that bit. Number 9, really simple one, proximity to a role. Proximity to a role. If your candidate's unemployed or highly motivated, they may consider traveling a long way to get to a brand new job. Okay, they may consider that, may even take the job. But I will say to you that over time, that motivation seriously gets impacted. It gets impacted in terms of either their motivation or their productivity. Okay, so you know, we all know where we're having to travel. And some of you I know as owners or business leaders, I know some of you travel a really long way, but you're the owner. Okay, you're the owner. It's your company. It's what you do. But if any of you have got recruitment consultants, you know, that are traveling, or if any of you have experienced candidates that have had to do a big long trek to get to a job, the motivation wanes or the productivity wanes, but something will ultimately not go right. So try and go for candidates that are, you know, close to role. Now, I'm not disputing relocators. It's like, of course I know relocators. If you're working a contract market, professional contractors know they've got to travel, they're away from home, you know, they have weekday bases, and I know that. But generally on a perm side, you know, try and find people that are close to the role or will consider to relocate, because otherwise it is problematic. Good rule of thumb I found from experience is half an hour, 30 minutes commute or drive each way is pretty good. Anything over an hour, then I'd say to you, you need to seriously question it. All right. Anything over an hour, I mean, let's do the maths. I wrote this down. 1 hour each way. So if you're going an hour to work and an hour back, 5 days a week adds 1.25 days to your work week. 1.25 days to your work week. Think about it, right? So if you know, if that's, and I know some of you do that now, but from a candidate's point of view, it's like, if you're adding an extra day and a quarter to my work week, I don't know. Number 10, we're almost there. So this is the penultimate. This is an interesting one. Candidate who's not too long at one company. Candidates who's not too long at one company. Now, I used to call this, you know, it was trained to me, and it was the womb factor. Okay, I'll explain that one in a minute. It sounds awful. It's the womb factor. Other people used to call it the 7-year itch. All right, the 7-year itch. And you know that's applied to so many other different relationships, etc. The 7-year itch. Be wary, and you know, it's like I've had my fingers burnt on this. Be wary of candidates who've been at the same company for more than 5 years. Okay, so it wasn't a 7-year itch for me on the candidates I was dealing with. It was 5 years. Now, the reason we say this is that if a candidate has stayed at the same company, I don't want job hoppers. That's the, you know, that's the extreme one end. But equally, if you've got candidates who've been in the same company for more than 5 years and they haven't shown a progression, all right, and even if they have shown a progression, if they've been there 5 years, the wound factor begins to play very, very quickly. The wound factor is that if you've worked at one company for 5 years, more than 5 years, you're very safe. You know, you've maybe grown up in that business and you're safe. It's like you're in this cocoon. You grew up in that business, you know everybody, you know the job, you know the systems, you know the directors, you know my peers and my colleagues, you know the suppliers. You're very safe. It's really warm and comfy. And so for you to come away from that, the wound factor, if you were to step out of that, it feels really cold and unsafe. Now, the reason why you've got to be careful, whether it's 5 years or 7 years or whatever it is in your industry, a candidate that's been in the same company for more than, I'd say, 5 years, is that they may say to you, hey, listen, I've made a decision, I want to move. But when it comes down to it, when it comes down to the offer, when it comes down to counter offers, when it comes down to start dates, it's generally you can find some real problems. It's problematic, right? It's loaded with problems. So when I get a candidate that has been at their company for 5 years, I really, go to town them. I'll be saying to them, look, I'll be honest, I don't think you're going to move. And the ones that I find do, they've been with the company 7 years, the ones that do, generally something's gone very wrong in their business. They've been overlooked for promotion several times. The company's relocating, they've done something wrong, they've changed something in the business. It's usually something catastrophic that's gone on in the company, then they move, but you have to seriously qualify it, okay? So not too long. You've got to thoroughly test their motivation to move. Final one, okay, final one. And then what I'm going to do is just open up for some quick Q&A. So do me a favor, just as I'm doing this, just write up your questions. We'll do a quick Q&A at the end, and then I'll release everybody. You can go whenever you like, but I know you're enjoying this. So stick any questions that you've got up for me. The final criteria, I mentioned it earlier on, number 11, achievements, accomplishments. The candidate has got something to sell, okay? And your candidate has got to be able to evidence, it's a really strong word, they've got to be able to evidence something that you can sell to your client. Because look, let's face it, clients come to us to find them competent people. They come to us, they pay fees, right? So they come to you, they'll pay a fee to find somebody that they struggle to find when they're looking. They don't want to pay you for average Joes or Joannas, do they? There's a Joanna that works in my business. I don't want to call her an average, she'll kill me. So a client wants to pay, will pay you, will pay you fees, but they want to pay for somebody that is special, right? That's different, that's unique, that brings something to the table. And generally, that's not the job that they do; it's the achievements and the accomplishments that they've achieved in their, in whatever roles they do. So, if you're going to show that your candidates represent value to that client, you've got to come armed with these achievements and accomplishments. And if your candidate can't supply that information, I'm going to give you the questions to ask them. If they can't supply that information, they're not a candidate. End of. Remember, this is about the ideal candidate. If the candidate's got nothing to sell, if they've got no achievements and accomplishments that they can evidence, they're not a candidate. They're not a candidate. So look, what's the question that we ask them? Really, really quickly, I would ask you, what have you achieved in your current role that you're most proud of? Give me your most tangible, describe your most tangible achievement or your accomplishment in the last 3 years. Let's put figures on that. How can you measure that? It's another good way to ask them. How do you measure that? So if they tell you, don't be very wary of generic, I'm the best, or I'm really good at what I do. I'm a really successful accountant. I'm one of the best programmers in our industry. They've got to be able to quantify it. They've got to be able to measure it. Because if you can measure it, you can feel it. And if you can feel it, the client can feel it. That's the difference. Now, you and I know that most candidates' CVs don't have this stuff in there. They'll go Candidates will give you, I'm an accountant, here's my duties, here's my responsibilities. I don't care if it's just, I'm not picking on accountants today, by the way. I don't know, property managers, they'll tell you, these are my duties, these are my responsibilities, CV, CV, CV. That's all they do. You don't do that, all right? You don't trade CVs. That's not what you do. You're not an automated job board CV service that you just like someone uploads their CV and then that CV goes to the client. If you are in that business, get out of that business. You're a professional recruiter, and a professional recruiter is someone who takes a candidate and markets that candidate. And when I say markets, like packages that candidate, not lying, not making stuff up, but they delve, they probe and find what are the achievements and accomplishments and how we're going to market those to the clients that I represent. Okay, I hope that kind of makes sense of what we talked about there. The achievements and accomplishments, they give you the power and the impact on your presentations. They'll give you the power and the impact on your presentations. And you'll never get that from describing duties and responsibilities. Again, a really quick exercise, and then we'll go straight to the Q&A and close up. If I said to each of you, right, and there's lots of you on this webinar, but if I said to each of you, what do you do? Give me your job description. Now, you all work in different companies, you're all in different parts of the world, but I guarantee you, if you are recruiting, if you're actively recruiting, your job description, your duties and your responsibilities will read something like this. I source candidates, I'm responsible for bringing in new business or selling to our existing client base, account management. I interview candidates, I qualify them against client briefs, I present those candidates to clients, I manage the process, I negotiate salary, I ensure that the candidate started, etc., etc., etc. So whether you are in Johannesburg or whether you're in Jordan or whether you're in, I'm trying to think of a J, in Jarrow, wherever you are, it's like the duties and the responsibilities are exactly the same. So can you imagine how boring that is if you're a client and you're receiving phone calls or CVs on your desk from, I don't know, 20, 30 recruitment consultants, or you're receiving 20, 30 presentations on 20, 30 recruitment consultants? They're all going to be really boring. But if you phone me and you said, hey, well, I've got a recruiter for you that in her current role has invoiced over X, Y, Z. She's consistently the top biller amongst 30 other revenue generating consultants. And she's considered the authority within her marketplace. She's published 3 white papers or something. I've made that up on the hoof, but that's the achievement accomplishment route. And a candidate that has that, power, impact. Candidate who doesn't have that, duties and responsibilities, it's boring. Okay, listen, we've reached that time. So let me just, look, that 11 criteria, get it down. If you haven't written it down, watch the replay of this and write those notes. Get that 11 criteria. Use it as a checklist. Use it as a checklist in your next team meeting. Or if you're a recruiter, use this as a checklist on your own desk. Every candidate that you're currently working with, just apply that checklist to them. I'm not telling you you're going to have ticks in every box, but the ones that you don't have ticks in, go to work on those, all right? You need to ensure your placements. You need to underpin your placements. Use that checklist, it will work for you. Right, let's open up on questions. Any questions? I can't see anyone's written any in, but that's cool, that's good. If there aren't any questions, it sounds to me like I've done a reasonably good job. But if there are, just fire those in. If you haven't got a question, tell me, have you got value out of this session? All right, you've spent 45, 50 minutes with me now. Have you got value? Because for me, I know this is a free event, but for me, you actually made a bigger investment. Both of us have, but you have, and that's an investment of your time. All right, I take that really, really seriously. As an ex-recruiter myself, time was my most precious commodity. So I take your investment of time very, very seriously. So I just need to know, did you get value out of today's session? Just yes, no, kind of, maybe. I'll have to think about it. Whatever you want to do, just put that up there. Now, while I'm waiting for you to do that, some of you I can see have asked me, Roy, on previous sessions, you've mentioned the Recruitment Mastermind's 12 module program, the online program that develops recruitment businesses. So this is for recruitment business owners only. It's not for managers, it's not for team leaders, it's not for recruitment consultants, so apologies for that. There are other things for you guys. But for the owners, some of you have asked me, Roy, you've mentioned recruitment masterminds before, your coaching group. The online program, how does that work? So what I'm going to do is, just in the sidebar, you should see, are you a recruitment mastermind yet? Click the button to get more info. So that's the 12 module program. It's an online program. It's me teaching you, etc. I'm not going to sell it to you. Go there. It's got all the details on it. So look, whilst I've put that up, if you're interested in that, then that's work, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, good. I hope that doesn't take you away from the page, so be careful if you click it. I hope that it just opens it up in another bit of a browser. Okay, listen, let's just have a look. Kathy, you've put gut feeling into words. Great checklist. Thank you, Kathy. And actually, it's praise from you and from the people that are in here. That's massively motivating for me, because you guys are my peers. All right, you really are my peers. So you inspire me. So to hear that kind of feedback from you makes a real big difference to me. So thank you for that. Vicky Smith, we love the motivation to move scale. Vicky, remember that phrase and do it with your people. I know you've got a great team down there at Rocking Zebra. Remember to say to them, my old mentor used to say, number one's accept offers, number two, accept counter offers. You won't always get people going number one, okay? The highly motivated, they'll say number one, number one, number one. People are just a bit more circumspect. And actually, I'd say to you, a European crowd as well, I think sometimes, people will tell you number one because they're not, they think that's what you want to hear. I think a European crowd, slightly more conservative, they won't say to you, hey, I'm a number one, I'm rocking. They'll say, pardon the pun, they'll say to you, hey, I'm a number three, I need to be convinced. Well, that's great. The next question to ask them is, what would I need to tell you about my client's opportunity in order for you to be a number one? Or if you're using it during interviews, what would my client need to tell you at interview in order for you to be a number one? It's a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant scale. Let's have a look. Graham, thank you again. Graham and any of my masterminds, I know we've got a few on here, and a lot of them will be watching the replay, obviously. When someone like Graham Orman tells me, as always, it always sets my day up really nicely, so I appreciate that, Graham. Jason, massively got value, Roy. Nick, excellent. Reinforced that actually I'm doing most of the qualification correctly. Good. Okay, really, really good. But could just tighten up more. Thank you so much. Nick and any of you, you know what, the training and stuff that I give you, I know it's not revelation, all right? It's not meant to be. I'm not going to suddenly turn around and say, hey, there's this brand new way of recruiting. There isn't. There's a tried and tested best practice. And most of you are following best practice. But what I always say is that, even the greatest footballers or sportsmen and women, they all have coaches, and the coach is not there to teach them to, completely radicalize the way that they do stuff. It's to tweak them 2 to 5%. 2 to 5%. So it might just be a slight adjustment, and that slight adjustment can make a massive difference to what you're doing. So Nick, great feedback, and thank you for that. Tom, thanks, Roy. Great start to the day. John Brophy, I think the benchmark you've set is great for junior recruiters. Perfect way to clarify if candidates are a waste of space. Absolutely right. John, I will say to you though, I used that exact criteria to qualify very senior candidates. I mean, like up to 250K base salary candidates, and very junior as well. I've used it at the first types of candidates I was placing. It's a good, and I know, John, as an experienced recruiter, you do that kind of qualification almost as second nature. But it is a good scale. It is a good criteria for you to use with some of your more new recruits. Carol, thank you very much. Very informative. Matthias, thanks, Roy. This was very interesting list. Perfect to learn, train recruiters, and ideal for me to refresh my qualification questions. That's why I wanted you owners to have this, is take this training. If you want to, run this replay as a training for your staff, brilliant, do it. Look, I'm just really pleased to get that message out there. Or take the information, take that checklist, and then you train it in your next team meeting. Alicia's so interesting. Thank you, Alicia. Now, look, guys, it's 9 o'clock, all right? So it's 9 o'clock here in the UK. Let's just round this session off. Remember, thank you for your questions, by the way. Remember, use the checklist, use that criteria as a checklist, just to take the pulse of every deal that you're working on right now. So whether they're your deals or whether they're your team deals, use the criteria as a checklist. It's a really, really powerful thing to do. Ultimately, what you're looking to do as a recruitment business owner or leader is get your consultants applying the same checklist to their deals. So turning up to your meeting, having done that. So your questions are, yep, done that. Yep, they're a number one. Yep, they're highly motivated. Yep, they look the part. Tick, 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 right? Okay, so look, thank you very, very much for hanging out with me today. I love doing these sessions. I hope that comes across in the way that I present, etc., to you. It sets my day up, all right? I've got a great day ahead. I'm actually meeting with one of the masterminds later on to work on branding. So energy, and I'm like, oh, and it's not just the coffee. I've got to have another one now. Thank you very much for joining me today. Please subscribe. Go to royripper.com if you haven't. Get notified. There's Facebook, there's YouTube, there's all of those different things. But the easiest place is go to royripper.com. Click there, and we will notify you every time these free training sessions come up. We're doing something, anything live. You'll get notified if you are subscribed to any of our lists. Until I see you again, remember to work hard on your recruitment business, not just be busy working in it, all right? Remember, work hard on it rather than just be busy in it. And finally, whether you're a recruiter, whether you're a team leader, whether you're a business owner, if you're a recruitment business leader, work hard to make a difference in the lives of your clients, your candidates, and your colleagues around you. Okay, until I see you again, hopefully soon, Roy Ripper signing off.